So if you're thinking about moving to Port St. Lucie, Florida, you might have heard all the great things about this growing city. You know, Port St. Lucie is perfectly located an hour and 45 minutes from Orlando and 2 hours from Miami, with a whole host of cities to explore up and down the Atlantic coast within a couple hours. Like cities like Vero Beach, Jensen Beach, Stewart, Jupiter, West Palm, Boca, Fort Lauderdale, and so on. It has one of the lowest crime rates in the country and one of the highest home ownership rates. You can get a home here for a lot less money than most other places in Florida. And you can still get reasonable insurance while being 30 minutes or so from the beach. And obviously, the weather's fantastic. But today we're going to flip the script and we're going to talk about 5 things I hate, or at least highly dislike, about the area. These things are things you should consider before making a move. So let's get into it. Hey, I'm Steve Kimos, a local realtor specializing in new construction here in beautiful Port St. Lucie, Florida. And the first thing I hate or really dislike about Port St. Lucie is the traffic. Port St. Lucie is growing fast, and with that comes congestion. While it's nowhere near as bad as places like Miami or Orlando or cities in the U.S. out west or up north, rush hour can get frustrating, especially on major roads like US 1, Crosstown Parkway, and St. Lucie West Boulevard. And because the city is still developing, road expansion is constantly underway, leading to more and more construction delays. Now, the city has foreseen this growth, and they say they have and are planning for it, but if you hate sitting in traffic, stay off the roads at certain times of the day. Now, depending on where you're from and what traffic you're used to, the traffic is somewhat relative. Some of my clients are like, oh, this isn't so bad, while others are like, this is horrible. Now, I'm in the middle, but leaning toward the horrible camp. Let's see if what they planned takes care of the influx of people coming to Port St. Lucie. Now, next on my list are property taxes. Florida might not have a state income tax, but it doesn't mean you're off the hook. Property taxes in Port St. Lucie can be higher than you might expect, especially with the rising home values. In fact, Port St. Lucie has some of the highest property taxes in all of Florida. Even with the homestead cap and the assessment reduction, it's still higher. But here's the thing, the houses here are cheaper. So a $450,000 house in Port St. Lucie would run you about $1,800 to $2,000 more a year in taxes than in Martin County, its neighboring county to the south. The problem is, the house that cost you $450,000 in Port St. Lucie would run you $500 or $520 in Martin County. So you have to calculate in how many years of saving $1,800 to $2,000 in taxes would it take to make up the $50,000, $60,000, or $70,000 in the price difference in the areas? It would take decades. I'd probably be long gone. Now remember, on top of the taxes, there are CDD fees that come on your property taxes. Now, CDD stands for Community Development District, which can add hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars to your expenses. So if you're looking for low-cost living, these extra fees can be a deal breaker. I have a whole video on CDD fees and taxes, so be sure to check out that linked in the description below. Now, the third thing, let's talk about one of the biggest surprises for newcomers to Port St. Lucie and the tradition. There's no direct access to the beach in Port St. Lucie because Port St. Lucie is not a coastal city. If you want that oceanfront lifestyle, you're going to have to drive to places like Jensen Beach or Stewart, which can take 20 to 40 minutes depending on traffic. So if you were picturing waking up and walking on the beach every morning, this might not be the place for you. Now, once you take Crosstown Parkway East or Port St. Lucie Boulevard East, you run into the Intercoastal Waterway. And then you have to go north up to Fort Pierce or south down to Jensen Beach to get to the nearest bridge out to Hutchinson Island. Now, there's talk of building a bridge from Walton Road at the end of Crosstown over to Hutchinson Island, but that's way in the future. But the silver lining to not being close to the coast is homeowners insurance is much cheaper 10 miles inland, but you give up that direct, immediate access to the beach. Now, the number 4 thing I don't like about Port St. Lucie is the city is still developing, especially out by tradition, which means some key amenities just aren't here yet. While you'll find grocery stores, restaurants, and some entertainment options, you won't find the major entertainment venues or a huge nightlife scene that other Florida cities have. Now, sure, it's all coming. But if you want all those conveniences right now, you might find yourself driving to Stewart or Jupiter or West Palm, or even Orlando more than you'd like. Now finally, the last thing is that there's no real historic downtown area in Port St. Lucie. Now, unlike other Florida cities with charming historic districts full of shops and restaurants and cultural spots, Port St. Lucie lacks the traditional downtown vibe. The city is more suburban and spread out, so if you love walking through a historic downtown, you won't find that here. Again, you have to go to Stewart or Jupiter, but there's talk of making a city center at the event space on Route 1. You also have an Abacoa clone at the new entertainment district in Tradition. And of course, you have Tradition Square. But it's not quite the same as these little Florida downtowns that grew up organically from an 1800s citrus transportation and railway hub, like a Stewart. So there you have it. 5 things I dislike about Port St. Lucie, and these things might make you think twice about moving here. Now, of course, no city's perfect, and Port St. Lucie has a lot to offer, but it's always good to know both the pros and the cons before making a big life move like this. So what do you think? Would these things stop you from moving here? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe so I can keep making content like this. And be sure to check out some of my other videos on the channel for more information on Port St. Lucie, Tradition, and the surrounding area. But until then, I'll see you in the next video. Hope the information was useful. Bye.